Good afternoon and greetings from UB. Welcome to our Alumni Webinar Wednesday series. On behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement, the UB School of Management, and the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, we are so delighted you are able to join us for today's presentation. My name is Christy Fields, and I oversee the Alumni Careers and Lifelong Learning program here at UB. It's a very exciting time on campus as we look to welcome all of our graduating students into our alumni family next weekend, and exams are quickly approaching and the energy around campus today is certainly contagious. So with that being said, I have the honor to welcome and introduce you to Tom Ulbrich. Tom earned his EMBA from UB in 2006 and currently serves as the Assistant Dean at the University at Buffalo School of Management. He's the Executive Director of the Blackstone LaunchPad at UB and also the Executive Director of UB Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, where he works with a dedicated team to give small business owners the support they need to thrive. In today's webinar, you will learn how to build a customer loyalty experience that keeps them coming back for more. You will learn more about customer loyalty as a competitive advantage, tools you can use to measure it, and examples of successful companies that live it each and every day. We will leave some time at the end of today's webinar for Q&A. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them through the GoToWebinar control question box that you see on your screen. Tom has also so kindly provided a handout that you can upload in the handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will also circulate to the entire group following today's presentation. So with that said, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Tom Ulbrich.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Christy. I'm glad to be able to be with everybody for a little bit today and share about customer loyalty with you. I just have to say really quickly, because we're very proud, the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. So we're very proud of that. So let's kind of dig right into customer loyalty. And I want you to consider a few questions before I get started here. The first one is, how difficult is it to find, get, and keep a new customer? And I really want you to think about this. Some of you may know this number if you have a more sophisticated process in place to understand things like your cost of customer acquisition or the lifetime value of a customer. But I'll give you a hint for those of you that don't. It's a little bit expensive, but we'll talk about that. Second question I want you to think about is, how does customer service help you keep a customer? So you might start by asking yourself, what exactly is customer service and what does that phrase really mean in your business? So again, just think about that for a little bit here. And third, I really want you to think about this whole thing of customer service versus customer experience. Are they the same thing or are they different? And also think about, doesn't every business need to have a level of customer service just to be in the game? So what's the difference between customer service and a customer experience? And fourth, I want you to think about this concept of loyalty. So loyalty, what does it really mean to you and what does it mean to your business? So I'm gonna kind of come back to where we started and ask you again, how difficult is it to find, get, and keep a new customer? Well, I've got some bad news for you. It's hard, and it's not going to get any easier anytime soon. So this is a fact, and I'm going to digress from customer loyalty for a few slides here just to kind of set this up and let you see the world that we're living in today, and it's really this world of change. So there's going to be an additional layer of complexity to the customer service or customer experience of the future that we didn't have 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it's only going to continue to get more complicated. And this is the noise and distraction our customers are being increasingly exposed to due to the accelerating flow of information. They're being hit with a fire hose of information each and every day, and it's increasing exponentially. So let me give you a few examples in the next couple slides here, or next few slides. So just think about the world we live in today. Much of what you know today is old and out of date just 2 or 3 years from now. It wasn't always like this. And let me use this picture of this device that is on the screen here in front of you, or smartphone. And if you think back, many of you may not be old enough to remember this, but if you look at all the apps that are on that screen on that device, you might ask yourself, if you want to look at photos, do you remember the pile of photo albums on your dining room table? Or if you wanted to read a book, do you remember a bookshelf full of books? Or if you wanted to get on the internet, you actually had to sign into a computer that was plugged into the wall, or to listen to music, shelves full of albums and CDs, or maps. We actually had a thing called paper maps that we had to carry around in our car, or a planner. Many of us still use some type of planner, but the fact that you do not, your planner is right here with you in your phone. So I could go on and on and on about what this device alone has, but you carry this entire list around with you in your pocket every single day. And this was just brought to the mass market about 11 years ago in 2007. So again, a couple more examples of how the world is changing. So this stat is a couple years old, but so I'm assuming it may be even more jobs at this time. But according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average worker currently holds 10 different jobs before the age of 40, and this number is projected to grow. So our youngest workers are typically going to have 12 to 15 different jobs in a lifetime. In a sense, we're asking the students of today to be superheroes. If we look at the types of jobs that are available today, some of the fastest growing jobs in 2016 didn't even exist in 2006. Some of you may remember a few years ago, there was a viral video that went around called Shift Happens. Carl Fish and Scott McCloyd in this video talked about the speed of change and the premise that came out of that really makes us think about this premise that we're currently preparing our students for jobs that don't even exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. And they go on to talk about the amount of technical information is doubling every 2 years. That means that students that are in school for a 4-year technical type of degree, half the information will be outdated by the time they start their 3rd year. So again, what does this have to do with customer loyalty? Hopefully I will bring you back to that in a second. The other thing I wanted you to look at is just the speed of change. So the speed of technological adoption is increasing quickly, and it really feels like an acceleration because it actually is an acceleration. There's lots of statistics to support that. Every 12 to 18 months, computers double their capabilities, and so does any information technology that is related to that. We thought that Moore's law, or this doubling effect, was going to go away, but with artificial intelligence, we know that it continues on. It's actually increasing at a slightly more rapid rate. So you can look at the implications of the speed of change. If you're interested, there's a great site, a future site called theemergingfuture.com. Take a look there. But if you look at some of the stats, in just 5 years, our technology will be 32 times more advanced than it is today. But it continues to grow exponentially from there. And in 10 years, will be 1,000 times more advanced. In 20 years, 1,000,000 times more advanced. This is the world your customer is living in today. This slide I always like because it makes many people chuckle. This is the years it took to reach 50 million users, and you can see from the radio to Angry Bird Space how rapidly adoption of technology is taking place. And this stat, again, a little over a year old, but this is a global digital snapshot just to show you the penetration of technology in our population of 7.5 billion people on the earth. Over 50% penetration in internet use. And if you look at 66% of the world population has a cell phone. So a couple other stats I just want to kind of introduce you here just to see how quickly the world is changing. As of the beginning of 2018, there were 3.1 billion people using some form of social media. If you look at active users, you'll see that Twitter is over 330 million active users every single month. You can see Facebook there at 2.1 billion active users every month. Then there's other platforms coming online like Instagram, which is approaching 1 billion users. And if you even look at text messaging, there's over 800 billion texts sent every single month worldwide. Think about that. 20 years ago, text messaging didn't even exist. 91% of retail brands use one or more social media channels today. And there's over 92 million blog posts that are published every single month. This is a world that your customer is living in today. Another quick stat for you to just show how much information is coming at people. There are over 1 million new book titles published in the US this coming year. So it's not 1 million books, but individual titles, along with the millions that were published in years before. And Walker Smith says, we've gone from being exposed to about 500 ads a day in the 1970s to as many as 5,000 a day today. So it seems like the goal of most marketers and advertisers nowadays is to cover every blank space with some kind of brand logo or a promotion or an advertisement, is a quote from Walker Smith. Again, from 500 to 5,000. How does this impact your customers, and how does it impact your ability to deal with customer loyalty? Your customers are literally drowning in information. And again, from that viral video I told you about, Shift Happens, they talk about that it's estimated that a week's worth of news in the New York Times contains more information than an individual would come across in their entire lifetime in the 18th century. We'll generate more information this year alone than we did in the previous 5,000 years combined. So this brings a whole new meaning to this idea of paralysis by analysis. And just think about the volume of the information that your potential customers are being exposed to. So how does this lead to customer loyalty? I just wanted you to see the volume of information that we're being exposed to. And it's increasingly expensive and difficult to get your marketing message through this clutter to attract new customers. So I want you to recognize this technological advancement and noise that's around it. At the same time, we're screaming, "Listen to me," to our customers in an effort to get new customers. That's how most of us spend the majority of our time, money, and energy as business owners. All the while, we're trying to get new customers. We're ignoring our loyal customers and rarely consider the experience they are having themselves. So again, we're screaming, "Listen to me," in an effort to get new customers, but no one is listening. And if they are listening, they can't hear you through the noise I described. But why do we scream trying to get new customers and not pay attention to the loyal customers that we may have? So if I told you there was a better way that we could look at, that we would be able to sell more, we could be more profitable, and we could spend less money on marketing and advertising. So I'd ask you, would you be interested? And I hope that you're going to say, yes, you're interested, because there is a better way. And that better way is to focus on loyal customers, not just customer service, not just a simple customer engagement, but identify and building relationships with our most loyal customers and creating more loyal customers instead of constantly looking for new people. So why should we bother? And the reason is simply that research clearly shows that loyal customers will repurchase more. They'll buy additional new product lines and services from us. The next one we all know, they're our best source of referrals. But this last point, many of us don't know, nor do we ever think about. And I believe this is one of the most important points. Our most loyal customers provide constructive feedback. They're not just yes men and women, but they'll give us the feedback we need to make our business better and to be able to attract more loyal customers. So if we look at customer loyalty a little bit differently, you might look at the process that it takes to build and attract loyal customers. And I love this cartoon. And if you take a quick look at it, so on the left is our finding new customers procedure. Very complicated, very expensive, very time consuming. And if I could tell you, on the right is our keeping old customers procedure, which can be very simple, very inexpensive, and very, very profitable to us. Why is that? And the reason is that loyal customers can become our megaphone. But this megaphone has secret superpowers. It can actually cut through the clutter and the noise that we talked about earlier in this world of constant change that we live in. Our customers that become promoters of your product, your service, and your company are those that we call our loyal customers. And we'll dig in to look a little bit at why these customers might become promoters for you. So why do some customers become promoters? And believe it or not, yes, customer service is involved here, but customer service is just table stakes to be in business today. It's not a competitive advantage, in my opinion. There needs to be a level of customer service just to be in business. But how do we take customer service or customer engagement to a level that turns customers into loyal promoters of our product? And it lies in this. It lies in the fact that we often forget that the reason we buy, there's really two different reasons why we buy and purchase a product. The first is what I like to call our head decisions or our head reasons, and that's kind of which brand. These are the decisions we make when we buy with our head, where we look at things logically and say, does the value proposition exceed my expectations, or at least meet my expectations? Do they have the right product features for what I need? Is the quality in line with what the price is? Is the price fair? The restaurant meal, it was good, and that was worth $50. Great, but that didn't leave you special or feeling like you were taken care of. So what we often forget about, especially in today's busy world, that we also buy with our heart. These are the heart decisions, or we might say the other parts of our brains that don't have words attached to it, but we'll call it heart decisions to try to keep it a little bit separated. These are the decisions that we make when we feel like we've been delighted by the company that we're working with in some personal or emotional way. This is when we know our customers by name. It's when we show appreciation for our customers, when we listen to them, and when we share their values. So that's the heart decision. So how do you use loyal relationships to drive profitable growth? You have to make sure that customers get consistently treated in a way that they want to come back and they want to bring their friends. They want this loyalty experience. So there is a test, and I'm going to call it the ultimate test, for lack of a better word, to see if you really have loyal customers or not. And this is the concept of co-branding. Will people co-brand with their personal reputation and recommend you? Just like this famous and kind of brilliant co-branding campaign that Taco Bell and Doritos did in 2013. They tied their brands together. Your business, just like Taco Bell and Doritos has a brand, your business, of course, has a brand, which is not a surprise. But what may be a surprise to some of us is that each of us as individuals has our own brand too. And customer loyalty is simply about the willingness of one of your customers to co-brand their personal reputation to your company. And these companies that do this well, we call loyalty leaders. And here's what we know about loyalty leaders. They grow at a faster pace than the competition that's out there. They grow because they earn the loyalty of their customers. And some would say it's the only way to grow your base of repeat customers is to grow it through a loyalty process. And loyal customers become promoters. So remember, you want to be a loyalty leader if you have the chance to do that. So let's look at a few loyalty leaders, and it might help you better understand this concept. that I'm going to introduce about how we measure this. So there's a company that annually does a survey of brands. The company's called Satmetrics, and they do an NPS or Net Promoter Score benchmark, and we'll talk a little bit about Net Promoter Score itself a little bit later in the presentation. But what they're looking at is data-driven insights on brand loyalty and customer satisfaction. They look at a couple hundred brands across 2,300 industry sectors, and for 16 years they've been doing this. So what I want you to see, this is really some of the most comprehensive repository of data in this customer experience area, and executives from around the world use this. So let me introduce to you some of the loyalty leaders and see if you recognize any of them. USAA Insurance, this company continues its 8-year run at the top of 3 different industry sectors in this survey, in auto insurance, banking, and home contents insurance. This may be a surprise or maybe not if you're a loyal customer of Costco. Costco sits atop the rankings across all industry sectors, regaining the lead from a perennial favorite, Nordstrom. So Costco has a generous wage and benefit program compared to most of their competitors. And when you look at it, their return on that investment, investing in their employees, they have one of the most productive workforces in retail with some of the lowest turnover rates, lowest shrinkage or employee theft rates, and generate nearly twice the hourly profit per employee that their competition does. So Costco is investing in their team, investing in their people, and in return, they have a great team that doesn't turn over, that is building some great customer loyalty for their business. Nordstrom typically has been at the top of this leader survey. They've dropped back a couple spots, but again, Nordstrom is a company that, if any of you have visited them, they invest in their employees, they make shopping experience very personal, and they have some technology, some of the best technology to improve that customer experience for you. If we look at the airline industry, some of the perennial favorites in the airline industry, last year, Virgin America edged out JetBlue, who was the leader the year before. And also another historical leader they edged out, which was Southwest Air. So these 2 companies, or these 3 airlines, are consistently at the top of a list, and we'll talk a little bit later about why that is. So we might have many Apple loyalists on here. Apple took back the top spot in smartphones from Samsung in 2017. And what's interesting is Apple lovers are so loyal that some people call them iSheep. So there was a survey done not too long ago as some ongoing research in the mobile phone purchasing decisions by a company in the UK. They did collected data from over 2,200 iPhone users, and they found that a staggering 60% admitted blind loyalty to their handset or to their cell phone. The definition was users who stated they would not even consider researching other handsets when upgrading in the future. Asked why? 78% said they couldn't imagine having a different type of iPhone right now, and 52% said that they were just really, really impressed with iPhone and the iPhone team. So this is a really interesting position for Apple to be in, and it demonstrates a level of brand loyalty to which most manufacturers can only dream about. So for you Apple phone lovers, how loyal are you to your Apple phone? ChickfilA, coming into at least our market here in Western New York shortly, one of the few companies in the restaurant industry to make the best places to work. This is a company that really, again, invests in their people. They teach skills. They have college scholarships. They've got a fairly decent quality of food. There's a career path in the organization, and they have some very, very loyal employees and loyal customers. So YouTube, which many of you are familiar with, just caught up to industry leader Netflix in the online entertainment industry. So Netflix has some incredible customer loyalty. And one that many of you will recognize is Four Seasons Hotel. So Four Seasons is consistently on the list of the most loyal customers. And when you look back, when the founder of Four Seasons started this company many, many years ago, back in the early 60s, this company has now grown to branch out into 38 countries, but they've also become a name that's synonymous with luxury and, more importantly, attention to detail. The founder of the company, Isidore Sharp, really approached the founding when he founded this company on customer service. And what he talks about when he talks about customer service, he says, and I quote, "One way to characterize Four Seasons service would be to call it an exchange of mutual respect performed with an attitude of kindness. I sat down with our communications experts and wrote down the fundamentals of our culture, which is based on the golden rule, to treat others as you wish to be treated. A lot of companies talk about having a culture, but we know that if we had to walk the talk, we knew we had to walk the talk, and if we expected it, we had to have our customers expect it if we were to thrive in our hotels." So really, really interesting. And when you look at Four Seasons, the secret of their success goes that he recognized that the people in an organization are the organization. He saw that the great brands were built on the backs of great people, and he also recognized that happy staff perform great work. So it's probably not a surprise to many of you that Fortune began ranking the best companies in 1998, and Four Seasons has consistently sat on top of that. Another company with very high net promoter score rankings over time is Enterprise RentACar, where they talk about, we try to thrill our customers every time. So one of the most loyal groups of customers in the world come from HarleyDavidson company. And why do I say that they're the most loyal? So despite having very good NPS scores, remember how I talked about co-branding earlier? Well, HarleyDavidson is a company where people literally co-brand, where they will put the Harley-Davidson symbol or logo tattooed on their body. So just like we have loyalty leaders, and I showed you a bunch, we also have loyalty laggards. So loyalty laggards are those companies that are below their industry average. Excuse me. So I don't want to call out individual companies, but I think one that's been in the news a couple times recently that you can quickly relate to, and this is not me calling them out as being a bad company, but what I wanted to do is put this up there to show you how quickly just one incident can hurt a customer loyalty experience for the entire group of customers that you have, because we live in a world today of instant communication, instantaneous communication, where no matter what you do, good or bad, it can be communicated instantly. And unfortunately, people are happy to communicate bad things rather quickly. And companies will suffer because of that. So as we get into some tools that you might use, let me just go back to this loyalty effect again. And remember, why is this important? It's important because we know that loyal customers repurchase more often, they buy additional product lines and services, they're our best source of referrals, and they do provide that constructive feedback that we all need to make our companies even better. We can also say, I've talked a lot about employees leading up to this too. So profitable growth in the loyalty of customers and the loyalty of employees are really the same thing. So many of you are probably thinking, well, how do we build loyalty? Isn't customer service what loyalty is about? And yes and no. So customer service can be just that. Customer service, it's table stakes to the game. But customer loyalty is about the golden rule. And not this golden rule, but this golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Simple, right? Well, yes and no. It's so simple that it's really not that simple. So what we like to say is it requires a couple things. If you want to really engage this process, it requires a message from the top to your customers. A message that says customers are our first priority. A message that says your feedback, customers, drives our focus. A message that says we have taken the following actions based on your input or your feedback. A message that says, please give us more feedback. We depend on it and we want it. We ask for it. We communicate this constantly to your customer via newsletter, advertising, blogs, customer advisory groups, however you may communicate that. That's one part. But we also have to have a message from the top to our team. And it's really, quite frankly, the same message. Customers are our first priority. Their feedback drives our focus. We've taken the following action based on their input. Employee recognition is based on those results. Employee compensation is tied to those results. So we communicate this constantly to our employees via internal events, signage, manager reports, meetings, and performance reviews. I said it's not easy though, right? So it's not easy. This doesn't happen overnight to move from a level of customer service to a level of customer loyalty. It requires an attitude and a culture of change. It really starts to say, keep calm and play the long game. We can't move the needle overnight, but I can give you a few tips of what not to do. So the first I'm going to talk about is bad profits. So whatever we do, we don't want to create detractors or people who are working against our company. And the fastest way to create a detractor is through bad profits. I mentioned earlier with the slide about loyalty laggards. In today's world of instant communication, your customers can and will, I guarantee you they will, tweet, blog, text, post, whatever it is about a bad interaction that they had with your business. So you might ask yourself, what is he talking about? What's a bad profit? Think of a bad profit as any time that a customer might feel cheated, ripped off, coerced, maybe ignored, maybe misled, any way that they feel like you are earning money from them in what they would consider a less than great way. So another way to look at bad profits would be to define it as any type of interaction with your customer where they're feeling shortchanged because of the customer experience. So some bad profits to share with you, just a few that you may recognize. So the first I'll share with you is the airline industry. So a bad profit to me is that $100 surcharge to exchange your ticket, or $100 for a piece of check luggage, or $50 or whatever it is they charge for check luggage. You'll notice that some of our loyalty leaders, like I had Southwest up there, they don't charge you for these type of activities. Another would be cellular phones. Why is it that the best prices are always for new customers and we have outrageous and overage charges for those of us that have been on for a while? Why is it that your cable bill slowly creeps up, but the minute you give a phone call and you ask, they lower the price? These, in my opinion, are bad profits. If you've ever returned a rental car and they charge you 4 times the price of gas at the retail pump, bad profits. A bad profit that they've experienced locally that I won't repeat the name of the company, but has since fixed, was using an online site to purchase tickets from them and being charged a surcharge because we didn't use the box office. Instead, we went online. Bad profits. We're saving them time. We're saving them effort. We're saving them money. So Fred Reichel, who is at the basis of a lot of the Net Promoter Score information I'm going to share with you right now, he talks about bad profits, and he talks about how bad profits will kill your company's growth through the detractors that they're going to create. Detractors are people that are working against you, will literally destroy you. 25 years ago, a detractor could tell a friend and perhaps another, and the word might slowly spread. But today, a detractor can engage 10,000 followers on social media or more in seconds. So never, ever, ever take bad profits. And to just remind you of that. So how do we know if we're doing a good job? How do we judge this dimension called loyalty? And this is what's interesting about the tools I'm going to share with you. Until relatively recently, we really didn't have any types of tools to measure loyalty. And we didn't talk about loyalty in the boardroom. Our accounting systems don't measure loyalty, and we manage in the boardroom from financials, and financials drives decisions. So most companies don't tie compensation to loyalty. Most of the tools, as I mentioned before, about that we manage for profit, not loyalty. So we needed to add a dimension. And a lot of people thought that the dimension to measure loyalty was surveys or customer surveys. And let me tell you what I'm about to introduce you. You may call a survey, but I'm not going to call it a customer survey that we're used to. Most satisfaction surveys communicate the wrong message. So think about the last time you've got a customer satisfaction survey. It almost reminds you, when they're super long and they seem to never end, it almost reminds your customers of how much or how little they don't care about you. Or did you ever get an email with a customer service or customer satisfaction survey that starts out by asking your name and your email address to be filled in? That seems a little bit unusual. And here's what's really interesting. Many people still defect or leave your company when they've marked satisfied on a survey. So that's interesting. Why might that be? 80% of defectors mark satisfied on a survey because they had a satisfactory experience. They did not have a loyal experience. So a satisfactory experience is simply a head experience. You charge me X for this product, service, meal, whatever it was, and I believed in my head that it was worth it, but it didn't make me want to come back for more and bring my friends. But we still like our surveys. So let's look at a tool that you might use to measure loyalty. And ultimately, it's a tool that really just asks you about recommending. And it's really about this one simple question. Would you recommend us to a friend? So why is this question important? If we go back to what I talked about earlier, remember the heart and the head discussion we had earlier? This is a never-ending fight in the brain. It's kind of the endless fight in our human brain. Is it the heart that wins, or is it the head that wins? But we know that we use both. So would you recommend us to a friend probes both dimensions of loyalty. It probes the head, the thing like features, best service, best price, and it probes the heart dimension. Do they know me? Do they value me? Do they listen to me? So there is a tool, and the tool I want to introduce you to is not my tool. It came from Satmetrics and Fred Reichold, and I'll give you a bunch of resources around this. It's called Net Promoter Score, and here's what it looks like. Many of you have seen this. If you've ever flown JetBlue or Southwest, some of you will get a Net Promoter survey. It's simply this question: how likely is it that you would recommend this firm, product, or service to a friend? They'll change the question up a little bit to reflect that accuracy of that question right in front of you. And it really is asking people on a scale of 0 to 10 to say how likely is it that they would recommend. Seems pretty simple, right? 0 to 6 are detractors, 7 and 8s are passive, and 9s and 10s are promoters. So what do you do with the information? 9s and 10s are our promoters. These are our loyal customers raising their hand to say, I've got a great relationship with your company. I want to give referrals. These are the people that act on their loyalty. They stay longer, they buy more, they attract new customers. This is a group that's singing your praises. Take good care of them. The 7 and 8s are passives. So remember our earlier discussions on the difference between loyalty and satisfaction. These are our satisfied customers. They got what they paid for. Nothing more, nothing less. Sure, they might make an occasional referral, but it won't necessarily be enthusiastic, and it might not be very often. They've just felt that they did a transaction of money, and it was exchanged, and they got what they paid for. The 0s to 6s are your detractors. This group isn't happy with you. That makes sense, I think. They're ticked off. They're not happy. Maybe they're perplexed about how they've been treated by your company. They're bad-mouthing your organization to friends, to colleagues, to family. You've got to pick up the phone and talk to them. You got to get to the root cause of the problem and figure out how you can improve. It's possible that some of these people just should not have been your customers in the first place. Those are the people that no matter what you do, you can't make them happy. So when do you do this? When do you ask this question? There's 2 times you can ask it, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but one time you can ask it is at the time of transaction. So once a transaction is made, you can ask at that point of transaction, what was their experience? Would they refer you? Typically, we don't do this for retail transactions, but we do it for larger transactions, like perhaps an airplane flight, purchasing a car, something like that. We can also do it what I call pulse of the company. So we can ask all of our customers, or a segmentation of our customers, every 6 months, once a year, to understand how they feel about our business. But I have to give you a couple warnings. The first of which is big red stoplight. If you're going to ask this thing that looks very, very simple, this one question, if you ask, you have to close a loop or you risk alienating customers. Excuse me. So what I mean by that is, imagine that you are asked about your experience and you share with people and you share a negative experience. Nothing will make a person angrier when you took the time to fill out and respond to something like this, and there's no way for people to follow up. The second thing you have to be careful of, this is so simple, it's not simple again. You need to make sure you have good data. You don't want to make bad decisions or insufficient decisions based on bad data. So you've got to make sure that you sample your customer segments and apply loyalty to those segments. You've got to balance your representation properly, and you've got to make sure that voices are heard according to the value. So this, again, we could get into a whole topic about it, but I just want to give you some warning points as you start to dig in and learn more about this. So that really comes to giving voice to sample. So there's those people that are the most recent purchases, and there's those that are the most frequent. And this is called recency and frequency. Those need to probably be given a bigger voice. There's also some customers that may be more important than other customers because they bring bigger value to you. So for example, do tier 1 accounts have a bigger voice than tier 3 accounts? These are things you have to think about as you engage in this process. The other is that Net Promoter Score varies by industry. Context matters. It's really important that you don't try to compare your Net Promoter Score to another company's Net Promoter Score unjustifiably. What you want to do is get a benchmark for your company and then move that up from there. So NPS, or Net Promoter Score, correlates to brand. Mass market brands typically have lower scores, and that would make sense, right? Because mass market, typically we don't have as deep an interaction with our customer. Niche brands typically have a higher score. Low involvement categories, again, have lower scores. High involvement categories typically have higher scores. Cultural differences can impact results. Regional differences can impact results. So as you think about, would you like to engage this, and I would encourage you to engage this process, you want to be thinking about how do you do it the right way in your company and make sure you gather all the information that you need. The other thing we have to do is be careful about cheating. So you've got to protect yourself about gaming. So how do you game a survey? People game surveys by picking only likely positive respondents. Somebody could deliberately send surveys to incorrect contacts. They could provide incorrect sample data. They can manipulate the time period. They could find ways to make scores ineligible. There's a whole bunch of things that people can do. So you have to make sure you have a really good process that this isn't gamed. How do people game surveys? Another interesting way, I see it a lot in the auto industry. If any of you have purchased a car recently, one methodology of gaming a survey is walking you over to the wall and showing you all the questions you're going to be sent and saying, I really need you to give us a 10 on all these. If you can't give us a 10 right now, let us know so we can take care of it. It's gaming a survey. It's psychologically setting you up. So in the end, what you have to think about, we really have to think about closing the loop if we're going to use this. Making sure that if we ask the question, we have a process in place to be able to respond to people and make things better, and also to give them a response that they're looking for. So I'll give you an example. What would closing the loop look like? Let's say somebody returned their survey and you had a detractor, or 0 to 6, provided you a poor feedback score. What would happen is, as these came back, you would analyze the results. You would analyze them and process them. Some type of business rules that you create around this would generate an open issue record for this negative response. It would trigger a follow-up to initiate a customer call. The person that owns the follow-up conducts the call to try to fix the issue, better understand the root cause of the problem. If anything cannot be resolved, it's escalated up to management. And then frontline managers use the feedback from the customers to coach and use it as a learning experience for their team to continuously improve the customer loyalty experience. And then over time, the management team's job is really to monitor these performance improvements and make sure funds are available for these improvement initiatives to move forward. So that's what closing the loop looks like. So I want to kind of wind things down here in case anybody may have questions when we get done. But I want to kind of close this part by saying why should you care about everything I just presented to you? Why is this important? Why would anybody embrace this process? And I want to tell you, I showed you some of the leading companies in the world that are embracing this process. And I would encourage each of you to look further into it and embrace it. But why should you care? Here's why you need to care. 80% of you as business owners believe that they provide a superior customer experience for their customers. But when surveyed, only 8% of your customers agree. 8%. That's 8%. I'm going to drive it home for you. Only 8% of people agree with you. 8% is the amount of people that keep their New Year's resolutions. So in big red letters here, only 8% of the people that you believe are loyal customers are truly loyal customers or believe that your company is giving that type of experience or a loyalty type of experience. That's sad, and you need to pay attention to it. As we kind of bring things to close in these next few slides, I'll let you know why it's so important, and think about that busy world that we live in today. So I want to stop by or tie things up here to give you a couple personal customer loyalty experiences to just show you how a little bit can make a big difference. My first, and forgive the photography, this is self-photography, not the best photographer, I guess, but my first is Mr. Bowtie. This is a picture from a couple months ago from St. Martin. St. Martin has literally been devastated by the hurricanes. You can see if you look closely at the building in the back, or the building in the background, it's still boarded up. This is what much of St. Martin looks like. But one of the tour guides, and Mr. Bowtie, has gone out of his way to make this an unbelievably positive experience, even from the way that he's decided to dress and engage. That was a loyalty experience. It wasn't a typical tour guide experience. And let me give you an experience from one of my favorite brands, which is the Marriott brand. And I stay a lot, mostly, I guess almost always when I travel, I try to stay with the Marriott. And this is again from a recent experience, and it's two experiences. This is in Florida. You can tell from the palm trees, right? This is a Courtyard Marriott and a complex in Miami area. And when I arrived at this hotel a couple months ago, we arrived very early. We took one of those 5 a.m. direct flights with Southwest Air, and was very early. Knew I was early. We always stay at this hotel. And when we went to check in, the experience, we were there early. I knew it was way too early. I think it was 10:30, 11 o'clock. The person behind the desk they were polite. They were professional, I would say. They said, your room's not ready yet. And I'm like, of course, I understand. And then I asked them, they didn't ask me, I asked, could you hold my luggage for me? And they were polite and they said yes. And back and forth we went with a little bit of politeness and nothing more than that. So that was good customer service. I came back at about 12:30, 1 o'clock when I was told we could stop back. And there was a different person at the desk. And now we have a loyalty experience. And this is what a loyalty experience is like. I walk up, I said who I was. The person immediately thanks me for being an elite Marriott member. Oh, I see you stayed here just a few weeks ago. You were here. I see you stay with us often. Thank you so much. We had a great conversation. Then they went on to say, we'll get your luggage. And I said, that would be great. I'll take it up to the room and then we're going to go for something to eat. They went on to say, no, you won't take it up to the room. We'll have it in your room later. So typical, not of a Courtyard style to have luggage delivered to your room. And so the experience continued on and on beyond that, which was just an incredible experience and very different than good customer service. So as I was walking away, this is kind of the final, if you want to talk about how do you pay attention to detail to customer. The person said, don't go to your room for a half hour. I want to make sure that we defeathered your room, which kind of sounds funny. And I'm like, what does defeathering your room mean? Apparently I had checked on some type of loyalty document that I wanted foam pillows versus down pillows, which I had no clue I did that. but that's the level of service that they're looking at detail and paying attention to detail, and looking at you not just as a customer, but as a partner in their business. So that's really the difference. So I'm going to leave some resources for you. We've given you a handout that's available that has all this on it for you. And let me just close with this. What I want you to do today is forget about competition for a minute. Forget about where you're going to get new customers and spend some of your resources focused on loyalty. There's no easy button, but you can create a customer loyalty button. And why should you care? Why should you care about anything I said today? Because I'm going to tell you this from my experience in the work that I do. Hardly any of your competitors are doing it. Hardly anyone is doing it. Take advantage of what's in front of you, the ability to get through the clutter that your customers are experiencing every single day. These loyalty experiences are so rare in our busy world that you can build an incredible business just on loyalty alone. So we'll end there. And I don't know, Christy, I'll turn it over to you if anybody had any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate the information that you shared, and especially the tools and resources that you shared. I know a couple of questions were regarding the tools and resources, and you touched on that for us, so that was fantastic. One question I do have for you is, how might customer loyalty be an advantage for nonprofits and religious organizations? Any suggestions there?
Wow, that's really, really interesting. So I'll try nonprofits for a minute, okay? So nonprofits, same thing. If you look at nonprofits, we have limited resources as potential donors or potential volunteers or potentially engaged. So here's where loyalty is critically important. We could even use it at UB. So we have many people that go to the university that have a good experience. They have a great educational experience, and they believe that they have a satisfactory experience because they've got a diploma and they got a good education for a price, and they believe that satisfaction. Very different than a loyal alumni that is out there talking up UB. So somebody that has a loyalty experience is involved in some way. And here's the interesting part with the nonprofit. What way do they want to be involved? Not what way do you want them to be involved, but how can you ask your customers, your clients, if you're a nonprofit, how they want to be involved. Some people want to be involved by recognition. Some people don't want any recognition. Some people want to donate money. Some people want to donate time. So I think with a nonprofit, or you might even say a religious organization too, it gets a little bit more complicated because your job is to figure out now, how do we engage people the way they want to be engaged? And what I can tell you from my work, everybody in those situations, there's maybe 10 different categories that they might want to be engaged in. And I know that you guys are doing a really good job right now trying to build on that engagement and how we engage people here at the university. I actually just took a survey related to that asked some of those questions. But it's how do we understand how people want to engage with us on their terms, because once they're engaged, they're the people that are out there. We don't need to do any more SEO or brochures for UB when we have thousands and thousands. If we had truly loyal graduates, they'd be doing all the work for us.
That's great, Tom. Thank you. And then another question I do have as well is, if you already ask customers, would you recommend, but you use a 7-point scale, can you convert the data to the 0 to 10-point scale and calculate the NPS?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've not done that, and I think we'd have to ask somebody we could do it, I'm sure, but I think that would be somebody in the business school with statistics to even out the scales. What's really interesting, we use a 0 to 10 scale, and what's interesting is a lot of people are like, why is there a 0 on there? Believe it or not, without the 0, even though we're used to 1 to 10, people sometimes get mixed up and will make a 1 the top number, because sometimes people ask surveys that way. So adding a 0, I think, is really helpful to set people in their mindset. But to your 0 to 7 or your 1 to 7, whatever you're using, I will look into that and get you an answer. I'm sure it can be converted, but I'm not sure exactly, because you want to do it statistically the right way.
That's great. Thank you, Tom. And then another question too, and you talked a lot about this during your webinar, was the term loyal. How would you just simply maybe define loyal as a customer, and what would you say is required, maybe just a couple of key points, what is required for the customer to really be considered loyal?
Yeah, I think the main point when you start thinking about loyalty is what I like to think about. The major point there is people that if they're loyal, they'll co-brand with you. So they're willing to use their brand, as I try to explain, with your brand. That's one part that's super, super important. The other are those points that I gave you before about they'll buy more often from you, they'll refer people. But here's what I think, and I underlined it in the presentation. My experience is I think the best thing about loyal customers, and if you really want to know if you have loyal customers, is those are the customers that are actually willing to give you feedback, not just say, oh yeah, you're doing a great job, but they're the ones that are willing to be critical, but not in a harmful or hurtful way. They're willing to pick up the phone and say, hey, Christy, I wish we did this a little bit differently, and here's why. So if you're looking, if you don't have a survey and you're thinking about who are my most loyal customers, I would look for those that come back to a lot of activities, those that refer other people to you, but more importantly, think about that short list of people that are willing to give you feedback. Those are your very, very top loyal customers, in my opinion.
Excellent. And just a couple of more too, I think we have time for. How do you determine the Net Promoter benchmark for your business-to-business industry without paying that, financial cost or that financial burden, having that financial burden?
Yeah, so there are, in some of the resources I gave you, there are, for broad industries, they'll publish a report that you can kind of compare yourself to. But I think most of us need to be really, really careful. What I like to say is do a benchmark for yourself, and the score goes from -100 to +100. And I hope you don't have a -100, but it's not uncommon for companies at first to have a slightly negative Net Promoter Score, and then benchmark yourself and over time compare yourself. It's really difficult to compare to other people. You could compare an industry sector, but if you're, what could I use as an example? If I'm selling retail products in a small business, I can't really compare myself to Nordstrom. There's no way, because the systems and everything are so different. I would compare myself, create a benchmark, and then over time watch it benchmark, and hopefully you're improving it. And as far as tools, you can do it very, very simply with SurveyMonkey as a tool built right into it that people can use as one example. And I gave you some other tools in that handout.
Great, thank you. And then we'll do one more question before we wrap things up. Can an accurate NPS be calculated from one or two simple questions? And if so, can you provide an example?
So can it be, so the only question that we're really looking at, an accurate NPS can be calculated from that recommend question. Absolutely, that's all we're looking at. We usually ask, would you recommend? So that's the net promoter question. Then we might follow up with it with an open box. So a box that just says, would you like to share why you answered the way you did? So with that data, with just the first number alone is where you really do your Net Promoter Score from. What you do with that open box data is where you can dig a little bit deeper, because the problem is when you ask open-ended questions, you can get a lot of feedback. So it takes a lot of time for our loyalty teams to dig through all that data. And as I said earlier, the challenge with this program is, if there's a challenge at all, the good news first is the simplicity. And we know the loyalty question works statistically. So that's the good news. The bad news is, if you ask and you don't follow up, you should never ask in the first place, because you're going to turn people that were on the edge into detractors. So the simple answer is, I may have not been really clear, but it's really just one question that enables you to get a Net Promoter Score. And yes, there's statistical data that shows that is accurate information if done correctly. When you get into statistics of how do you sample the database? Do you ask everybody? Do you ask segments? And that's why I didn't want to oversimplify it. Well, I did oversimplify it, but wanted to warn you today that you need to dig a little bit deeper into it.
Tom, this has all been fantastic. Thank you so much. I know we might have just a couple of additional questions. I'll send those to you. We'll get those responses and share those with the attendees today. I just want to, again, thank Tom for taking time out of his day for sharing this very valuable information for us that we can take back with us to our organizations or companies, and maybe input so we can provide better customer loyalty and a customer experience. So with that said, on behalf of the entire Office of Alumni Engagement, I would like to thank Tom again for not only sharing his time, but his knowledge and expertise. We have recorded this webinar, and we will send you all the link within the next 24 hours. And also, just a reminder, Tom has shared that great document with many resources and tools that you can access by uploading from GoToWebinar today, and we will send out to the entire group following today's presentation. Also, just save the date. We have some 2 upcoming webinars in May. Next week, we'll be joined by UB alumna Linda Bucher. She's going to share with us how to connect with your passion and purpose for a meaningful life and career. And then on Wednesday, May 23rd, we're very fortunate to have Molly Anderson, Executive Director for University of Buffalo Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. She's going to join us to share her expertise on how leadership starts at the end of your comfort zone. So we hope to see you on a future webinar. Again, thanks to Tom, and thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.